What does it mean to be us? And why is that important is because that's your true north. Well, every time in my life, so my values, my core values are selfless, tough, and disciplined. Those are my core values. Every time in my life, I've made a decision against my true north. That's selfish, lacks resiliency, toughness, and is an undisciplined decision. Every time I've made a choice to not point in my true north, I've regretted it. Every time.
Eric Kapitulik, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Dustin. I'm fired up to be here this morning.
Yeah, well, it's an absolute honor, and I was first made aware of you because you did a presentation at the NAOP conference in San Diego, and I'm not just speaking for myself, but I was blown away. And after the talk that you gave, I was speaking with some of the other people that were in attendance, and wow, what a journey, what a story, and it's so amazing that you're able to share all these experiences and everything you do. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for your service, and thank you for sharing the message. Before we jump in, would you like to briefly introduce yourself, give a thumbnail of who you are?
Yeah, sure. For your audience, I'm Eric Kapitulik. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called The Program. The Program has one mission: develop great teammates and leaders to create world-class teams. We have the privilege of doing so now in this, our 18th year in business, with more than 160 of the top collegiate and professional athletic teams and corporations throughout North America annually. By way of introduction, I'm very fortunate. I'm a graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy, where I played college lacrosse. I spent 8 years in the United States Marine Corps as a Marine Corps officer, as both an infantry officer and then in Marine Corps Special Operations. I think we'll probably get into it a little bit here today, but while serving in Special Operations, my Marines and I were involved in a helicopter crash where 6 of the 10 of us on board, 6 of those Marines lost their life in an effort to raise money for a college scholarship fund that I set up for the children of my deceased teammates. I began to compete in the world's longest endurance events and climb the world's tallest mountains. Uh, After 8 years on active duty, I was honorably discharged. It was just time for me to do something else. I attended the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business. That was 18 years ago, and I founded the program. But Dustin, that's all the stuff like that I do, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it. But really, who I am, I'm the husband to my wife Melissa, and the father to Axel, my 14-year-old son, and Anastasia, my 8-year-old little terrorist daughter. That's really who I am. So,
And it's amazing during your talk, all those things came through. The reverence for the men that were lost, or the folks that were lost on the mission, your what you bring to your family, what you bring to your life, what you bring to the people you work with, all those things shine through. And I want to start by asking you the question: is, 18 years ago, when you started the program, what was that moment, or was there a moment that you were like, I got to share this, or I have to bottle this up in a way to be able to share
yeah.
it?
Yeah, it's funny. Dustin, I get that question a lot about because people tell me all the time, "Oh my God, Eric, what a great idea of program." And I tell everybody the same thing. It is a great idea, isn't it? It's just not my idea, but it's a great idea. And what I mean by that, Dustin, is uh, when I got out of business school, I actually went to work at Goldman Sachs, the venerable investment bank, for about a year and a half. Goldman Sachs was a wonderful experience. I learned so much there that I still use today in running the program. Okay. I worked with really smart people, really good people. It just wasn't for me. It wasn't the right fit. Uh, I left Goldman Sachs. I founded the program. When I founded the program, my idea was hourly strength and conditioning coaches for prep schools throughout North America. These prep schools at the time, they had really nice gyms. I was helping out as an assistant lacrosse coach at a local at a local prep school in Boston, and I saw all these really nice prep schools, and they had like a science teacher in there making sure the kids didn't kill themselves in the afternoons. So when I started my business, my idea was hourly strength and conditioning coaches. And it did work. We did get some clients, but at the same time, I mean, a week after I started the program, the new Harvard men's lacrosse coach, John Tillman, who is now considered one of the, if not the greatest lacrosse coach of all time, head coach of Maryland lacrosse now, John Tillman, called me up. He had been the assistant coach at the Naval Academy when the last thing I did in the Marine Corps was work at the Naval Academy. I had just gotten back to the Naval Academy. Some kids had gotten in trouble on the lacrosse team. The head coach, who had been my head coach my senior year, called me up and said, Cap, can you come down here and just wear these guys out for a couple days? So that's what I did with the Navy lacrosse team. I just worked out with them doing like special operations esque type of workouts. Okay, now fast forward years later, the assistant coach on that team becomes the head coach at Harvard. He calls me up and says, Cap, can you come down here and just work on my team's toughness with me? I go down there. I do something very similar to what I did at Navy a few years prior. But when I did so, I would call out their team captains to lead some of the exercises with me. And Dustin, these are great young men. I mean, super smart, very athletic, good people, like all great lacrosse players, right? All this stuff. And they struggled effectively communicating to their teammates. After that 2 days that I spent with the team, I had that realization. And the feedback from the coaching staff was, Cap, I hired you to work with my team. And as great as it was for my team, I think it was better for us as a coaching staff about how we as leaders should communicate with our teammates, how we as leaders should set really high standards for our team, among other things. Okay. From that one event, I ended up working with two other college men's lacrosse teams in that first year in business. By on year two, I worked with 9 college athletic teams. By year 3, we were completely out of the strength and conditioning business, and we now work with more than 160 teams annually.
I love the fact that you broke it down like that because a lot of times, and this is one of the things I love about the show, when I interview high performers and executives, entrepreneurs, you tend to, from an outside perspective, you look at things like, okay, there was this, then there was this, then it was that. But when you really look in and pull apart like what those steps were, it's never like this switch was turned. There are these gradual steps involved, and they evolve. It blooms in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dustin, I'll get asked by some maybe like a business school here and there about, "Hey, can you come in here and talk about how to start a business?" And I tell everybody like, "Professor, no, I can come in there and tell you how to start the program. Like, I don't know. Is everything the same? I'm not sure, right? But there are some constants. I think and by the way, I do not consider myself a success yet. I'm a uh, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He talks about what is success, and for him, success is you being the best version of yourself. And that speaks to me. But if that's how you define success, then it's a constant process of self improvement, right? Which logically then means you only achieve success that moment of your death, right? So and not to be too morbid here on your podcast, but so I don't really consider myself a success because my definition of success is being the best version of myself, and I'm certainly a long way from that. Uh, but if you are going to achieve your goals along the way, whatever they may be, I do think there are some constants, regardless of the battlefield, regardless of the industry, regardless of the sport. And those constants are hard work, sacrifice, and discipline. I mean, without those three, I just don't see how you're going to achieve your goals if your goals are, challenging in some in whatever the respect it is, and or whatever the mountain is that you're climbing. Hard work, sacrifice, and discipline. Th- And if we are those three things, and you do those three things and show those three things every single day, then self and team improvement ends up being a byproduct of that. And then all of a sudden people go, "Oh my God, Cap, what a success!" Right? Yeah, it didn't happen last night. It's every day for 18 years.
So let me ask you this, because you and being in these environments that let's talk about, if you're a standout athlete in high school, your Naval Academy in combat, being in combat and doing those things, ultra like Goldman Sachs, all through the way, working with. Is there something? Are those things that you saw on every step of the process and those environments that you in, or was there ever something? Let me dive deeper. Again, I had a lot of thoughts going through my head to ask you
Yeah,
these things,
yeah, yeah.
but I'm imagining when you went to Goldman Sachs and you said these are smart people, they are, high performers, they're doing these things. Was there that same common thread that you recognized from the Naval Academy, and like when you're in Chicago for graduate school, like, were those things all showing up in all of these environments?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Uh, uh, y we all I had a battalion commander who once used to say, a man, but well, let's use it universal. It's an infantry battalion, so it is all men, but it's universal. M Men, women, we all are some of our experiences, and I can only tell you about my experiences, right? Now, so I don't know if this is the case for everybody. I know it's the case for me. I know it's the case for the people that I associate with, but it still doesn't mean that it's the truth, right, Dustin? It still means it's only my truth. But my truth, whether it was as a high school athlete, uh, the Naval Academy. Look, I got into the Naval Academy. The dean of admissions at the Naval Academy told me that, look, you did not get in here because of your academic performance in high school, nor your ability to play lacrosse. You got in here because of your high school guidance counselor's letter of recommendation for you. His letter of recommendation for you carried the admissions board to give you a shot here. And that letter of recommendation was about he and I building stone walls in the summertime together. We did them by hand. And specifically, one day there was a stone. We couldn't move it. It was immense. And we couldn't get it to sit just right. So finally, at the end of the day, he was like, "Eric, go home. We'll be fresh tomorrow morning. We'll start on this thing tomorrow morning." Well, I went home. I couldn't sleep, Dustin. So I got back on my bike with my headlamp, pedaled on back out to the stone wall with my crowbar in the other hand, like pedaling it down the road, got there, got the stone to finally sit right. Then I drove home and I went to bed. We get up the following morning. Well, he's like, Pinocchio, right? Like, I mean, how did this stone just magically appear, right? And I told him, I said, I couldn't sleep last night. Like it was beating me. I just couldn't do it. And he wrote my letter of recommendation. The naval, like, so like that's some of my experiences. And then, okay, so you achieve a little bit of success doing things a certain way. I mean, even a dummy like me can figure out, like, well, hey, that just worked by working really hard, by sacrificing, by not doing what everybody else is doing, by being disciplined, doing the things that I don't want to do. Just go and do it. But by doing that, okay, you win a couple. Okay, well, that feels pretty good. So let me keep doing it that way. And then you win a little bit more. And that's been the case in my experiences throughout my entire life, regardless of the sport, the battlefield, the industry that you're on, whatever it might be.
That's an amazing story. So, but wait a minute. I mean, it's so indicative of your mindset and your personality. How do you know when you've given it your how does one know when they've given it their all?
Yeah, well, I've spent my entire life, really, at least my entire adult life, trying to work through that. Um, and I see it in my son now too, that I'm working with him on it, of the what we're really talking about here is the difference between being happy and being satisfied. And because if you're just like, "Well, did you give it your all?" I mean, Dustin, the answer is gonna be no every single time. You can always do more. I mean, don't sleep. You could work more, right? Like, totally, disregard every personal relationship in your life for work, as an example, or your sport, or whatever it might be. You can always do more. I don't know how healthy that is mentally, physically, emotionally, necessarily, right? But I mean, everybody's got to make their own choices in life. But as I talk with my own son about it, Axel, you can be happy with your performance and not satisfied with it. You can be happy with your work ethic and not be satisfied. Those two things don't have to go hand in hand. And with me, Dustin, for a large part of my life, they did. So you're never happy because, well, I'm not satisfied, so I'm not happy. I mean, that's a I don't want my son to go through life with that same nothing is ever good enough attitude. I don't. Because ultimately when you say, "What do you want for your son or for your daughter?" I want them to be happy, Dustin. That's it. Now, I want to be clear here about happy does not mean pleasure. In fact, to be truly happy, they're going to have to give up a lot of pleasure. But ultimately, it's their happiness that I want for them. And uh if they can at a very young age separate happy and satisfied, I think it'll help them do that. I think it'll help any of us do that. You can be happy, but still get up ready to go. Let's go to work, right? So
Where
yeah.
where where
Anyway,
in where in your journey did you come to that realization?
oh, probably when I got married and we started having kids, because uh, I was so goal driven for so long at the expense of everything else in my life, and then having children, it really changed me. And uh, specifically, I just realized as a dad that if I was going to be special, if I was going to be selfish about my goals, if it was going to be about me, I was going to end up being a really bad dad. And when I held my son for the first time, certainly when I held my daughter for the first time, and I thought, you know, are you going to screw this person up? And as a parent, you can. You've got the ability to screw this person up. Or are you going to do everything you can to hopefully put them in a situation where at some point in their life they can make the choices that are required of them so that they make themselves happy? And to do that, it requires an incredible amount of time, guidance. The focus is on them. And that being the case, all right, are you gonna be happy even though you're not satisfied with all of these accomplishments in your own life, or whatever it might be? Um, that was a big kind of watershed moment for me, is just it being about other people, not about myself.
Hmm. Well, okay, so interesting, and this is I think this is great, and I'm thinking through this. So you've had the program for 18 years. You said your son is 14,
Yeah.
and you've had this evolution of thought. Did that change the way you approach addressing teams and working with teams? Because before, I'd imagine you're just like, nope, like this is your goal, this is your team goal, and then you're like, wait a minute, maybe there's a different tint to this that I didn't previously realize.
Yeah, Dustin, what a great question. Very, very intuitive, uh, and empathetic. most coaches that I've spoken to, most corporate leaders I've spoken to have said that having children has made them a better coach. Having their own children has made them a better leader. You have more empathy for for kids, right? And uh and so in at least again in my experiences, I feel like that's most people have said that it has made you better at what you do, and it certainly has for me, uh, as a leader of the program, doing what we do with college and pro athletic teams and corporations, 100%.
Yeah. That's amazing. And the beautiful thing about life, and as you have these experiences and it keeps evolving and not being so rigid, speaking for myself here, not being so rigid in your approach and knowing that things can change. You're not always right. There always can be a second edition of your book, or there could always be things that happen that change that evolve. Yeah.
Dustin, I think one of the real challenges here in America, look, I believe America is the single greatest country in the world. I
I
do.
I, I concur.
Okay.
From what I've seen,
That
I concur.
that does not mean that we don't have challenges here. We do. One of the very real challenges that we have in our country that makes me very nervous as an adult, as a parent of young people growing up in our society is this one thing. If I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, we have to hate each other. If I'm gay and you're straight, well, then there's something messed up with that that our beliefs. So we have such an immature like stranglehold on our beliefs and our thoughts and like people say it's just how I feel. I can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. It's just I'm just telling you how I feel. No, our feelings are very often wrong. What our beliefs are very often wrong. Like understand that your my beliefs are based on my experiences, what I feel about something, what I think about something. It's based on my experiences. And maybe the very small circle of people I surround myself with who probably feel and believe the things I already feel and believe. I feel and believe this. Oh, look at, we've got to be right. I mean, everybody in my church feels this way. Like, yeah, it's just your church. You're just surrounding by everybody that's in your church. It's everybody who's on your team, in your family, who may grow up in your socioeconomic group, in your town or whatever. Like, look, Dustin, I believe certain things. I feel a certain way about certain things, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact, I know very often I am wrong. So I have my truth. Realize that other people have their truth. Let's talk about these things. Let's not try to change each other's opinion. Let's not try to prove each other right. Like, what do I care about proving myself right? I mean, I'm not a 2-year-old, right? Like, here, let's just talk. I'm going to tell you what my truth is. I'd love to hear what your truth is. Let's ask each other questions in a respectful way. And we may very well not change each other's opinion or belief, but by doing this, then I gain a better understanding, and so will you. And if we both have a better understanding, then we have a chance of better. Not perfection, but better. We can get somewhere better. And for me in my own life, and you talked about it, whether it's as an individual or as a team, Dustin, over the 18 years, what we did 18 years ago, we'd be out of business if we still did it that way. Out of
Mhm.
business. No, we have evolved incredibly everywhere, and we're going to continue to do it, Dustin. We're going to continue to evolve because there is no true thing in life as just maintaining. Grow or die. That's not what I believe. That's what biology teaches us.
When you're meeting with these teams, these corporate teams, professional teams, all the folks are there, and I'm sure based on who you are and what I know of you, in every situation you're learning, you're listening, you're learning, you're growing. Is there anything that stands out or any particular instance or working with a team or, a company, a person that stand out that you're like, "Oh, that changed my mind," or there's a whole other way to look, it's a paradigm shift. Anything that stands out in the people that you work with?
Yeah, yes. First of all, you just said something about that has changed my life, which is when I'm working with people and teams and stuff. You're listening, and that's a yeah. See, Dustin, I not always did. I didn't always listen, and uh, specifically listening to understand. That's changed my life. I'm not listening to respond. Yeah, 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 but. Yeah, 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 but. That's listening to respond. Listening to understand. Attentive behavior, eye contact with people, being in the moment, asking follow-on questions, really caring to understand what this person is saying. I didn't always do that. I
Hmm.
just listened to responded. Here, let me tell you what I think. Here, let me respond to whatever you're saying. By listening, truly listening, active listening, listening to respond. I've heard them called both things. That's changed my life. Now, a second thing that has changed my life is developing my emotional resiliency or toughness. Okay. Emotional resiliency does not mean no emotion. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's an ability to stay mission focused when you're overwhelmed with emotion. We always think about resiliency or toughness as physical or mental, and those are important, no doubt. But when I think about the things in my life that are most important to me, my wife and my kids, it's really my emotional resiliency or lack thereof that helps or hurts those relationships. And in fact, it helps or hurts the most important relationships in all aspects of my life. Emotional resiliency, the ability to stay mission focused when overwhelmed with emotion. Number one, we got to be mature enough to recognize when we're experiencing a significant natural human emotion. Number one. Number two, take a deep breath. Number three, think. That's what makes us resilient, an ability to think. And what do we think? How do I best respond to this natural human emotion that I'm feeling that's going to best help my team accomplish its mission? Those two things I learned from Fred Kaufman. Fred Kaufman is a former VP of leadership development at Google. With our work over the last 18 years being doing what we do, we've done a lot of work with Fred and his clients. And Fred Kaufman has changed my life. He wrote a book called Conscious Business. I recommend it to everybody. In Conscious Business, Fred brings up the point of taking 100% responsibility. 100% responsibility. Responsibility does not mean that you are at fault or to blame. It still means you take 100% responsibility. It means you have an ability to respond. And if you don't take 100% of that responsibility, you blame other people and other things for who you are, who you aren't, what relationships you're in, what relationships you're not in, what you accomplish, what you don't accomplish, which by definition, not taking 100% responsibility, making excuses, that makes you a victim. Warriors take 100% responsibility. That's Fred Kaufman. Over the 18 years that we've been in business, Dustin, there isn't a client that I work with, and my teammates at the program say the same thing. There isn't a client that we work with that we don't learn something from. I mean, if we're not learning from our clients, you shouldn't do what we do. Period. Just should not do it. So there's everyone we learn something from. Fred Kaufman has changed my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, so on that note, is there anybody that you saw besides Fred? And he's with Google. You said he.
Well, he runs his own company now, and
Okay,
and Fred's. I don't know. Maybe he's retired. He says he's. I mean, he's hanging out.
well, maybe, but you never,
Yeah,
you never,
diving.
you never truly retire from being a leader.
No,
But maybe his
no, no.
company. But maybe his
Yeah,
company
yeah,
is okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Has there been any? And again, you don't have to use any names if you don't want to say it. But
yeah,
is there anybody that besides Fred that you go into a company like, oh, not only do they get it, like these
yeah.
guys are ahead of the game and they get it and their future is bright. Is there anybody that stands out to you?
Yeah, and there are, it and there's, other than the things that I've already discussed, uh, I'd share a story with you that's indicative of the folks that we work with that I always think like, man, they're going to be okay. And that is a bunch of years ago, we had the opportunity to work with Coach Snyder out at K-State football, Kansas State football. When we worked with Coach Snyder, he was already in the College Football Hall of Fame. He was in his 80s. If anybody's ever been to Manhattan, Kansas, who's listening, they know that you drive across Kansas and then you turn down like Coach Snyder Highway. Coach Snyder Highway ends at the Snyder Family Football Stadium. Okay. Like, I mean, he's in his 80s, and Coach Snyder hires Eric Kapitulik in the program to come out and work with his football team. When we're out there working with his football team, this Hall of Fame coach, 80 years old, is out there with a notebook and pen, writing notes furiously, asking me questions. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's over here asking me questions constantly during the event. After the event, Coach Snyder and I were able to sit down with each other. He was very gracious, gave me an hour of his time. We just sat down, just the two of us in his office. And I was able to ask him some questions. And one of the things that I asked him first was, Coach, I got to ask you, why did you hire the program? And his response is Cap, God, there's still so much I have to learn. That idea about lifelong learning, how many people truly have that? Or do they get to a certain point in life where they're like, "Meh, I'm good. I know what I know." To learn something new, that's uncomfortable. It creates discomfort for me, whether that be physical, mental, or emotional discomfort. I mean, when you have your beliefs rocked, God, that's uncomfortable for me, right? Like, how many people truly are lifelong learners? So that really made an impression on me, Coach Snyder. During that same conversation, I had asked Coach Snyder, Coach, what would you tell your 38-year-old self? And maybe I was 38 at the time. I don't know. What would you tell your 38-year-old self about being a success? I'll never forget what he said. Cap, first of all, he goes, I would write down how you define success. We all define it differently. And chances are you will probably define success differently at different points in your own life. So do that first and do it often. Maybe you come to a different point in your life. You got to redefine how you define success, right? Or that doesn't make any sense. Redefine success for you. Okay. So uh so do that first. He said, then on that same sheet of paper, write down everything that you do that keeps you away from attaining it. And then write down all the people that you associate with that keep you from attaining it or that aren't actively helping you get there. And then edit all of those things and all of those people out of your life. It's like,
Yeah.
blew my mind, right? Dustin, that changed my life. I have become much better. Perfect? No. I still find myself doing things or associating with people who, as I'm doing it, I'm frustrated at myself. I'm feeling frustration because this is wasting my time. And time is our most precious commodity. My sister, the greatest female athlete I've ever seen, three-time All-American, Division I All-American women's lacrosse player, two-time first-team All-American. As she always points out to me, Eric, you're not even the best athlete in our family. So take it easy over there, right? Flexing and everything else, right? You're not even the best in our own family. And she's right. I'm not. She never smoked a cigarette a day in her life. She ran every day, takes care of herself, eats right, sleeps, gets plenty of sleep. Yeah, 7, 8 years ago, she's diagnosed with lung cancer. Subsequently spread to her brain. She's still fighting it. Dustin, time. It's our most precious commodity. How are we spending it? Are we spending it on those things that we define that are going to, that as we define success? or not. Thank you, Coach Snyder, for highlighting it to it and teaching it to me at a relatively young age.
Man, well, wow, I'm so sorry to hear about your sister.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Boy, I'm the toughest person I know. I tell her all the time. It embarrasses me when, people are like, "Oh my God, Cap, how tough are you?" Yeah, because I'm the guy who stands up in front of 1,000 people and talk about climbing Mount Everest or being in special operations. Meanwhile, she wakes up every morning fighting cancer. That's tough.
I want to make sure that I give you some time here in the last few minutes to, parting thoughts, and I'll share everywhere where to find you in the show notes. But wow, I mean, sometimes you hear things and you hear about people's journeys, and then, you mentioned about saying something morbid earlier, but it's like that, like the life and death and what you realize about the time and how you should just do it, like, right, just take the initiative and do it. But then there's also something that you just mentioned about what Coach Snyder had mentioned. Actually, all the threads that are binding this all together, thinking, feeling, and then writing notes, auditing, like getting it out, talking about it, listening, all these things, and the balance of all that. It seems like that is the secret sauce. So you talk about the tools, talents, and techniques. That's it. You've encapsulated everything that I think is could be the recipe for someone to living call it a fulfilled life experience.
Well,
And I'm not trying to put
I
words in your mouth.
certainly
I'm just trying to
no,
like
I
weave it together that all the things that you touched on really are those, let's call them universal truths that somebody could actually take as a map and be the best version of themselves.
well, again, as I was gonna say, Dustin, I don't know if that's the truth, right? But
But is that the
I think
program?
so. I think
Like,
so, right?
yeah,
I think
yeah.
so, and I think so, and, uh, I think it is, and again, all of it is about me trying to be my best self, and Dustin, oh god, along the way, I talked about how having my daughter was it was different than having my son, for me, and at the time that my wife was having our daughter, I read a book called Stronger Fathers, Stronger Daughters, and it was a good book. A lot of it I thought, "Meh, I I would already know this type of stuff," right? But there was one line in there that changed my life, and that line was, "Be the husband you would want your daughter to marry." And up till that point, I don't know if I was. In fact, that means I wasn't. Okay,
Mm.
that's what that means. I wasn't the husband I'd want my daughter to marry. I read that, I reflected on it. My wife literally like the week later, the birth of my daughter, and uh, you know, I try to be the husband now. I try to be the husband that I would want my daughter to marry. I wasn't always, Dustin. Like, I think about me as a dad now and my interactions with my children. I would change some things that I did when they were younger, uh, in my interactions with them. That's true for me as a husband. It's true for me as a dad. God knows it's true for me in business as a business leader. I look back on my time in the Marine Corps. Boy, I made mistakes, and uh, I would think that's most of us, but I don't know that, but it is for me.
Yeah.
And and
Well,
and all I can do is get up the fall tomorrow morning, and for me, again, with my definition of success is get to work on improving yourself,
Well,
right?
let me ask you real quick. So man, 'cause I gotta have. How do you
Yeah.
frame that? Because that's not regret, right? Like when you're reflecting on something that you could have done better. How do you frame that? Of like, okay, I wasn't the best version of myself then, but
Yeah. Yeah.
is there a way that you think about
Well
that?
look, first of all, there are certainly things that I regret doing, okay? There are. And all of those things and when we work with companies and teams, one of the things that we do is help those companies or teams and individuals figure out what their core values are. What does it mean to be you? What does it mean to be us? And why is that important is because that's your true north. Well, every time in my life, so my values, my core values are selfless, tough, and disciplined. Those are my core values. Every time in my life, I've made a decision against my true north. Uh, that's selfish, lacks resiliency, toughness, and is an undisciplined decision. Every time I've made a choice to not be my not point in my true north, I've regretted it. Every time. Okay. And so no, I do live with regret. I I, I would be arrogant to say that I don't. Uh I don't let it consume me. I mean, I can't do anything about that. But what I can do, though, and what I am still in 100% control of, is not to do it again and to learn from it and move forward. I do have that ability. So that's what I'm going to do. And in every aspect of my life.
Well, Cap, that was this is such an honor to be with you, and I know you said that you don't see yourself as a success. I would find it I'd be hard pressed to find someone else that I've met or talked to or experienced in my life that I would consider more successful than you. So congrats on your success
Yeah,
and
yeah,
your
yeah,
family.
yeah. Thank
You
you.
know, prayers and blessings to your sister, and an absolute honor. Thank you for joining
Yeah.
us.
Dustin, again, thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how appreciative I am to have this opportunity to speak with you. And I hope our relationship continues into the future.
It will. I'll make sure of it. I'll make sure of it. You're not getting away
Great.
from me. All right, Cap. Have a good one.
Thank you.